This is how I built the Galactic Senate from Star Wars, with 3,863 in-game item pieces. This is by far the biggest project I have ever undertaken, and this venture started on a remote, desolate moon. This is the very start of it all. I needed to create the perfect circle, well, perfect for Norman Sky anyway. And I did this by using the concrete triangles, and then every interlacing pattern after that on every triangle going around the circle, I then put in a square, and then I followed the pattern as such. So if it's a triangle connecting to it, I put a square. If it's a square at the base, I put a triangle, and that will allow you to go ahead and, if you repeat this pattern, to make a circle as big as you want in Norman Sky. Easiest way to do it. Now, as we know, the Galactic Senate in Star Wars is massive, and I want to try and push the game engine as far as possible in this build, but I do have to take into account the render distance. Now, even though my render distance is set on ultra, even with the size of this circle ever growing, I am completely mindful that if I go too far, then things will start to de-render, obviously, at distance. So I am limited in that one factor. So with the circle now complete and pushed it as far as I feel was just probably about right, probably on the very edge of what is feasible in this game, I decided to work on the central column. So the central column is purely black, and looking at images on Google and rewatching some of the Star Wars films, I'm going to try and keep to the same color scheme as much as possible. Now, going up the sides of the central column itself, you have yellow lights. Now, it is in the movies and from pictures that I've seen on Google, it is one continuous light stream. However, with No Man's Sky's limitations, we will have to cheat here just a little bit and just use some yellow lighting. But I do have a good idea on what I can do to mask all of these lights up. More on that in just a second. Now, for the lighting itself, I've decided to go ahead and use these aqua tubing, the only ones that you can place in water. It kind of breaks up just the lines itself, and I think it's actually a really nice touch. It's still keeping with the aesthetic of the theme, and you know what? I really like it, so that's what we're going with. Also, on top, I've gone ahead and I've put the podium. Now, in the movies, it's kind of like an elongated shape. Now, these shapes are not normally found in No Man's Sky, but I had a look around and I used a random item, turned it upside down, and it kind of gave me that elephant shape, so a thin bottom, then it plumes out at the top, and then I put the podium on top as well. So what we're going to do from here is we need to now start building the walls. I'm going to build the walls around about 12 to 13 high. That should give us plenty of height, and with just how big as well that I made the circle, it's going to use a lot of walls, so I've got my work cut out for me here. Okay, so the walls are fully completed with the central column as well. Now on the right hand side, it does show that it is currently, the wall isn't there, but again, that's just how far that I'm pushing the render in here. But as soon as I step into the structure, the wall reappears. So you can see just on the sheer amount of scale and just the literal line that I'm pushing the engine here to make sure that I can render everything in at once. But now we have some more things to do. So I'm going to use these concrete floor panels, and essentially I'm going to put them in a certain order. So I'm going to skip a space every single time when I place it, and then when I go up one, I'm going to put it in between the last two floor panels that I've put down. And what will happen is when you look at it from above, when you look down at the pattern itself that I'm creating here, it'll look almost like a spiral shape. And now that is very reminiscent of the movies itself, especially in the Galactic Senate. You can see all of the podiums, if you will, all of the booths that are going around the edges. They're in like a spiral pattern going down. And I wanted to try and recreate that effect as best as I possibly could. So the way that I decided to do this was just by simply missing a gap every single time I was placing down a floor panel. But as you can imagine, I have a lot of floor panels to do. So when we go into camera mode here, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. You can see that it now creates that spiral effect going round. Now, depending on what angle you look at it, determines where the spiral effect is. So if you look at it from dead on, the central line looks completely flat and the edges look circle. Again, this is a No Man's Sky limitation, but if you look at it from any other angle, in any other position, then that does move, and everything does indeed look like it's turning in that kind of weird tornado-y circle shape, which is what I'm looking for. So let's save up here, and then let's continue on to the next step. So the next problem I have is the underneath lighting. Now, as you can see, I've done some playing about, and I decided to use some blue lights, just one blue light for each one of these tiles. Now, on the right hand side, I haven't done that yet, and you can see just how dark it is, but with the lighting on the left, you can see that it really does bring everything out in a more dramatic way, and that's what I'm looking for. But that's only if you're looking underneath. We've still got to do the lighting on top, but more on that in just a small minute. So as you can see, I have a lot of lighting to put down, and it's going to take me a while. So let's see what the finished result looks like. So not too shabby, if I do say so myself. Now the lighting really does start to bring out the character of the build, the design, and it's what I'm looking for. But remember, we can only see the lighting from underneath. There is no lighting on top, and when you look at it from a bird's eye view, then the lighting is completely masked over. So that's the next thing we need to start thinking about and getting it sorted out. But we also need to start thinking about the actual booths themselves. Now, as we can see in the movies, the booths themselves are like a circular shape, and they'll just fit nicely on top of these podiums. So now I need to try and think of something that will fit in there quite nicely, and I think I've got a good idea what it could be. So what I've decided on doing is using these curved desks in a purple and white pattern, and what that will allow me to do, and I've had to resize them and just make them that little bit bigger, so then it kind of overhangs just a little bit off the front of the actual floor itself. This should give it the effect that I'm looking for, that you can't see the tile so much underneath, even from a bird's eye view, and especially with how many there's going to be, it's going to make it look really, really funky in the end and give me that spiral shape with these desks. But we're also going to be putting some lighting on these desks a little bit later on as well, so we can get the lighting fixed and we can start making this build more complete. So after a very, very long, tedious time, it is now being completed. The desks are all there, and they look absolutely beautiful. It actually turned out a lot better than even I thought it would, but it's still looking very, very dark indeed. Now, at first, I was going to put down these pillar lights. However, you can't really resize them as such, and that's as small as they will go. But with these plinth lights, we can really size them down, and you don't lose any brightness for turning them down either. So what we can do is we can place these plinth lights all over the place, and it should, in theory, make it look absolutely epic. And I really like the fact as well that it's just a nice white light, and it should complement the desks that I've already put down. It should reflect the white on white pattern. So let's do this all around and just see how it turns out. But again, it's going to be a lot of work. Now, after a couple of hours of having to make sure that I meticulously placed these perfectly and spot on where I wanted them, I think it turned out absolutely glorious. Absolutely glorious. Now, I can stop here if I wished. I mean, it looks like the Senate. It just absolutely, the build looks amazing, but I feel like we can still push the game engine just a little bit further. Now, what good is having a massive space like this if there's no characters inside of it? So that's what I decided to do next. In every single booth, I'm going to place down a holographic friend. Now, this by far is and was the most tedious process of the entire build, because I had to go in between each and every one of these desks, make sure that the little guy goes behind the desk and hits the floor before I can even place them down. And with just how many of these booths that I have, it took a lot of time, a lot of work, and a lot of effort. But let's look at the end result, and I think you'll find it looks absolutely incredible. So that's the last one, literally just placed down, and let's go and save the game before I feel like the game is going to crash on me, because if it crashes right now, I just lose all of that hard work. So let's quickly save the game, and then we will have a look. You know, I am absolutely surprised that the game can run each individual holographic Gek friend at the same time. Now, they're all moving. Obviously, when I go into camera mode, it freezes everything, but they are all moving, which is absolutely incredible. And I think it makes the Galactic Cynic look a lot more alive. And that was the kind of last push that I really wanted to make. Now, obviously, with the camera, as soon as I start going out from the center, everything's going to then start darkening up. If I go too far out, then things are going to start disappearing. And again, that's even on the ultra setting as well. So yeah, I've really pushed the game as far as possible with the limits that it can. But overall, I think it's absolutely turned out brilliantly. I think it's all come together quite nicely. You can see all the Gex and the little booths. You got the centralized column in the middle there for whoever it is giving their speech, whether it be Palpatine or whoever. I mean, it turned out absolutely fantastic. I'm really impressed with this build, and it just looks absolutely amazing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please do me a massive favor, leave a like on this very video, and if you are new around here and you like this kind of stuff, then please consider subscribing to the channel as well. Anyway, that is everything from me here today. I hope you've all enjoyed my Galactic Cynic build from Star Wars, and as always, my name is Professor Cynical, and I'll catch you all again in the next one. Bye for now.